Hola, my name is Ana Valeria. I know it's been a while. I've been moving between cities and adjusting to Colombia and adjusting to its cold weather now. But I'm with a video, the dual BA admissions process. I know there's so many different applicants from so many different educational backgrounds. However, I have compiled the most three common educational backgrounds, which is Lycée Français with my dear friend Melissa. Then you have the American kind of track, American high school track with Lisa, also my dear friend. And then finally with Valle, my also dear friend, with the IB program. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them or just DM me on my Instagram. And I hope this video is helpful to anybody out there that wants to apply to a dual BA. This program is amazing. And just this video will show you three amazing girls. Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So Melissa's biggest takeaways. She's from French high school in Canada, tons of extracurriculars. Her biggest approach to the essay was just a clear outline, and the biggest tip is find what attracts you to the dual BA, and you should watch the whole interview. No, of course, thank you and for helping fellow and incoming students.
Of course.
So let's talk a little about you. Tell me about you, like what major did you do, what campus did you choose, where did you go to high school?
Okay, so maybe we'll start from the beginning. So I went to high school in Ottawa in Canada. I went to an international French high school, Lycée Français. So I did the bac in high school, and I chose, so it doesn't exist anymore, but at the time I did the economics and sociology major in high school. And then in Sciences Po, I majored in political humanities, and here I'm doing a major in human rights, and I went to the Le Havre campus.
What about your statistics, you as a student, when it comes to more of an academic perspective to the admissions office?
Sure. So I don't know how this will make sense to maybe our international applicants, but for those who are in the Lycée Français, my cumulative GPA over the 3 years of high school was around 18 over 20.
Oh my God,
and
that's amazing.
Thank you, and my bac score was 20. And I did take the SAT, although I do believe it's optional for the dual BA.
Yeah.
But I took it, I got a 1470.
Oh my God, those are amazing stats.
Thank you.
And what about your extracurriculars? What did you do as a student?
Yeah, I was doing too much, honestly. Kind of like at Sciences Po, actually what I really liked about Sciences Po was the fact that you could really be involved in everything, and it's not that committal, well, it depends, but you really get the chance to explore a lot, and I did that as well in high school. I did student government, I ran the feminism club, and I did MUN. Those were my main activities inside of school. And then outside, I was a figure skater.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
And I played the piano.
Oh really?
But let's say in terms of activities that were related to the dual BA in particular, it was mostly, the three more activist activities, which were student government, feminism, and MUN.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I did not know you were a figure skater. That's so
Yeah.
cool. And what do you think that from your student application, what do you think that made you kind of stood out to the admissions office? Do you think there was something specific, or was just your student profile in general?
I think, so I don't want to generalize, but I do think that the dual BA admissions committee prioritizes people who have a unique story and one that they feel connected to. If you talk about your personal experiences in your essay, which we'll get to, I assume, you also need to feel connected to it. It's not just about selling yourself. It's more telling a very personal story. So I think that was what stood out. I feel the way I grew up really fit with the mission of the dual BA, which is to make you explore different cultures, different school systems. I had, when I was growing up, I lived in different countries, and I did switch multiple times between the French and American schooling systems, even though I ended up going to a French high school. So I talked about those experiences and how that made me want to explore different university schooling systems as well. So I think for me, yeah, it was just the way I grew up and how like I felt connected to it and how I wanted to kind of explore that like international side of me more in the dual BA.
So back to the question. How did you approach your essay, dual BA essay question?
I approach it from a very like practical point of view. Like I just wrote down the question and I underlined all the key terms as if it was an exam basically. And I was like, okay, here they're asking about like your experience or like why do you want to do this program? Okay, whatever the question is, like I kind of defined the terms and how I wanted to talk about them. And then I did some research on the dual BA website, picking out specific things that stood out to me from the program and linking it to my personal experiences. So for example, I wrote a bullet point, like I basically did this chart and I on one side I wrote about the specifics of the dual BA and on the other I wrote about my like how it related to me. So for example, I wrote Euro-Asia program, which is the one I did, and then I wrote like my culture, like how I'm already familiar with Asian culture because I'm also Chinese, right? So I did this like matching of what's special about the dual BA and then how like I think it relates to me, how I like it, like, you know, why it draws me to the dual BA. And then I wrote my essay elaborating on these different connected points.
Oh my God, that's so elaborate. Thank you so much for explaining kind of how you approach the question. And do you think there's anything that now 3 years after you've been in this program, background noises from helicopters, do you think is there anything you would like kind of change in the way you wrote it, or I don't know, or maybe you will not change it, I don't know.
I wouldn't, to be honest, because it was successful, so I don't even want to think about what else I would do differently. I'm happy with it as it is.
Oh no, that's great. And are there any tips you will give to anybody that's like writing their essay?
Yeah, I mean, this is a general sort of advice for any, I think, college application essay is to be specific. Because obviously more people apply than can get in. So it is a selective process. So you need to find out what in the dual BA attracts you specifically. So either like do research on the campus, like are there specific courses that you want to take? Is there like a particular issue that you want to explore in your studies that like can be linked to something in the dual BA? Or yeah, you can also talk like I did about my experience growing up and like the overall mission of the dual BA, how it's international, maybe the friends you want to make, yeah, like specific things that you want to get out of the dual BA and that show that you're a great fit for it, that you're going to benefit from it.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I don't know if you remember about your interview. Is there anything specific you remember? Like, how was it? Because I know it was kind of a long time ago.
Yeah, I actually had a really good interview experience. Some people, so there's not a lot of information about the dual BA on the internet, but I did like some research on the internet and I found some Reddit posts about it, and I like all the info I had about the interviews were from like the internet. And some people said that especially the Sciences Po interviewer asked a lot of specific questions about politics and so on that maybe someone who's not from France wouldn't know. So I prepared quite intensely. Like I read the news a lot. Apparently you had to be very informed about current events, which you do. So I did read the news, especially about the region that I wanted to study, which was Asia. And at the time, COVID was like exploding. So there was a lot to talk about in terms of like economics, IR, whatever. So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
No, it's like
just the overall experience.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
perfect,
So like I did a bunch of like I just read the news and then yeah. What I'm trying to get to is that the interview was fairly easy. I wasn't asked any questions about like knowledge, like politics or whatever. I was just asked about what's my opinion on the news, and otherwise it was just a more traditional college interview, like why do you want to go to the dual BA, like talk about your extracurriculars, and yeah, very basic questions.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That was kind of a very nice answer, so thank you. Well, those are my questions, but thank you so much, and I'm pretty sure everybody that watches this video will be super, super helpful with the information you gave.
No,
thank you. Bye. Hola, hi Valle.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
So Valle did IB in Spain. She also did a lot of extracurriculars. Her dual BA essay was about her life experiences and the internationality offerings of the program. And her biggest tip is that Sciences Po is also super cool and there's a lot of international opportunities in there. Thank you so much for agreeing to let me interview you. So thank you so much.
Of course, any day.
So Valle, tell me about you, like what campus are you from, what majors are you doing, and all of that.
Okay, so my name is Valle. I come from Le Havre, so I was in the Asian campus in Sciences Po, and there I did politics and government, which is kind of the legal track that Sciences Po has to offer. At least that's what I saw in it. And then right now in Colombia, I'm doing the new major, which is cognitive science. So it's basically a mix between like neuroscience, linguistics, philosophy, a little computer science, and I'm missing one of the branches, but you get the idea. So.
Yeah, actually, she's the only one on the major right now, so that's impressive.
Yes, but I'm trying to convince another person to join with me. So.
And Valle, tell me about like your type of high school. Like, how was your high school experience? Like, the type of high school? Did you do normal high school? Where did you do it? Was it like AP, IB, etc.?
Okay, so first of all, I come from Spain. I did my high school in Spain. So their high school is just the last 2 years of school, not the last 4. So there's already a difference versus the American system. And then I actually switched schools right before going to high school because there's this really like old public high school in Madrid, which is the Ramiro one. So I really wanted to switch there because there's a lot of history. There's this whole movement that came from there, like artistic movement of the like residents that used to be. It's a really cool history. It's also the institution in Madrid that has done the IB. I think it's either the longest or the second longest for 40 years. And so I knew I wanted to do the IB because I had an international background. And so it was kind of like, if I'm doing it, I want to get it as best as I can. And the weird thing about that high school was that because it was a public high school in Spain, all public high schools are mandated by law to also have the normal Spanish track. So I basically had to do 2 high school systems at once. I did the Spanish one and the IB. But obviously, like the subjects that you do, where most of them were the same. Obviously, each kind of high school system has its own specifics, but it was kind of the same program, just the same classes, just from like the 2 different programs. So it was a very interesting mix. You see a lot about different lenses of analysis and whatnot. And I actually did the science one because I really liked math, and so if I still wanted to do math, that meant I also had to do chemistry, which was fine, but then I also had to do physics, which I didn't like that much, and then I had to do technical design, I had to do all these really technical subjects, which are kind of in the back of my memory now. But yes, so that was my high school and how it worked out.
Oh wow, and if you mind talking about like statistics about your high school, like I know IB has a grade. What was your grade in IB?
My IB grade was a 45.
45? Oh wow. Yes. And Valle, how did you connect that more science background to the dual BA with Sciences Po?
Yes, so once again, I went into the science background not because I was a hardcore science person, but because I really liked math. But just like I really liked math, another of my favorite subjects when I was in high school was philosophy. And so for me, the dual BA was a great way to kind of get those 2 sides of me where I knew in like, if I went to a Spanish university, that would just not be an option. I would be like boxed day 1 into a major that I didn't even know if I liked. And one of the reasons why I didn't know if I would like a major is because I'm very interdisciplinary. So I like humanities and I like math at the same time. And so for me, Sciences Po was definitely fulfilling more of my humanities side. I discovered I really like law. And it was okay because I just come from the experience of like really intense STEM subjects. So I really appreciated getting to do a lot of readings. And writing some essays, and then now in Colombia I'm doing kind of a mix of both.
Oh, that's so nice. And Valle, can you tell me about like what did you do outside academics during your time in high school? Like What were your extracurriculars?
Yes, so extracurriculars, I was in the debate club. First year I was a participant, then I had to, we just came back from like this debate thing at Columbia. So yeah, I was in the debate club mostly. I also just formed part of like cool side projects. So I was like in the recycling club. We made this association where we like gathered gifts for Christmas for people that couldn't otherwise have access to these gifts during the holidays. We also did a project for sustainability during when we were confined. Actually, that was our way to make confinement better, and I got my MAC as a result of that. So I would say, yeah, I was pretty engaged, and of course dance and Chinese. Yeah.
Oh wow, wait, I didn't know you did Chinese.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
So Valle, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but the dual BA essay question is still the same from when we applied to the dual BA.
Oh.
So so I don't know if what you remember of it or what you vaguely remember of it, but do you remember like how did you approach your essay? Like, what did you talk about a little bit? Because I know the dual BA essay talks about like connecting your high school experiences to the dual BA and why the dual BA. So I don't know, is there anything that comes to mind that you wrote in your essay, etc.? Yeah.
Yes, so I was also applying to other American universities at the time. And the dual BA was kind of the most different one because it even had a different portal. It wasn't through the Common App application. And so the one big difference that struck me from that essay was that it was a really large essay. Like it was like what, like 1,000 words or something, whereas like a lot of other universities, you had like the Common App essay and then maybe you had like the shorter response ones, which allowed you to glean on different sides. And then the dual BA one was all concentrated into one. I think this was kind of like a little intimidating but exciting at the same time because I felt like, you know, all those different sides of me that I'd incorporated for other universities in the smaller essays, I had to combine them all into one. And so, because as you can tell, I'm kind of a very diverse person, I was like, is this gonna fit together nicely? So that was kind of my approach. I already had, you know, I always talk about making little Frankensteins with my essays. So I had all of these parts that I knew I wanted to incorporate, and it was like about finding a story that made them fit together. And I actually love American essays for universities in the sense that I think it's really just telling a story and making it very biographical but also reflective. And you know, you can have a lot of fun with your essay, which is something that, you know, coming from a European system is very appreciated because we don't really have that chance. And then what did I actually talk about? Well, obviously I highlighted a lot about, you know, my background. I haven't shared this, but I lived in France and in the United States briefly growing up. So the dual BA was kind of like a perfect synthesis of, you know, my life location-wise. And then also because I was able to study Asia in Sciences Po and I had this interest with Chinese and in Asian politics, then it just matched up really well together. And so I think the leitmotif of my essay was languages and how, you know, languages, each language, what it taught me about the world, and that way you could glean and you could see that I lived in all these places. But I remember, I think something that I made different about the Sciences Po essays, I kind of started as like, it was a bit more political. Maybe not political, but it was a bit more kind of self-aware of the world. It wasn't just like looking at me, it was kind of reflecting into the world. So yeah,
wow.
I remember that from my essay.
No, but damn, you remember a lot. And I don't know, some people have said, and I don't know if you agree with this, that because you're also applying to a French university, you should make it less reflective and less the American way. Will you agree with this or not?
Honestly, I would say that each person should write in the style that feels the most natural to them. And the great advantage of the dual BA program is that if you're more like, you know, French style, then the French person reading it will love it. If you're more American, you'll have someone that will love it too. Because I wrote it more American style, but I also can tell you that I had friends that I think kind of approached it a bit more in the French style, and it really worked for them because that's kind of the voice that they have that is the most eloquent. So I would kind of stick to that. Also, when you have the interview, it's the same. Like, there's going to be the, you know, person from Columbia and the person from Sciences Po, and I don't know. I felt like the person from Columbia liked me more. Of course, I don't know this, but I remember my mom.
I kind of felt the same.
Yeah, my mom was in the other room because this was with COVID. It was online. I would have done it online either way, probably, though, because I was in Spain. And I remember my mom being like, I really think the French lady didn't like you at all. So, I mean, I got in the end. But yeah, just, you know, I think just use your voice and you're in a great program because you're probably going to find someone that's going to like it, so.
And any tips for the interview?
The interview. Okay, so the interview, it's, first of all, the interview, I have an understanding that they give it like once, you know, there's been a selection, so it's not like there's a lot of universities that, you know, everyone gets an interview. It's not like that. So that usually means that, you know, there's a little bit more job required, like you should actually read up on the news and everything. And I was actually really bad at reading the news. I still am. It's something I'm very self-conscious about. But I just kind of try to cram as many news as I could. In the end, personally, I didn't even get that many questions about politics. I kind of just spoke about myself and I kind of wove that in with current affairs. But I did compare my interviews with most of my friends that got in, and I think I was kind of an outlier in that sense. I think just, you know, kind of take things to your place. That's what you should be doing in interviews. Like, make it sound natural, but, you know, like, don't try to speak of something you don't know. Just, you know, add what you think it will contribute. I had a very sensitive time period where my interview was happening, which is when COVID exploded, and because I was applying to the Asian campus, any news that you could find about Euro-Asia was obviously COVID. So I felt like, you know, the weeks prepping into and reading about the news was just reading about COVID, which weirdly, I think more than actually helped me for the interview, helped me become like the advocate for like, be careful, COVID's coming. And like, I was kind of the person that warned everyone in my school when no one was taking it seriously. But yeah, I don't know how much influence that had on the actual interview. But I would also say, yeah, just read the news. It's okay. You don't have to, and just be yourself. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. That's super helpful. And is there anything you would change looking back your essay, or after 3 years, or?
I would change one thing, actually. When we were confined in France for our first vacation, me and my friends, we started like rereading each other's essays. Oh, and it was a very embarrassing experience, especially the part I had this whole paragraph dedicated to LF. And so I think that's the only paragraph that really stemmed the laughter. But I'd never been to the city where I was in, and so Le Havre is a very unique French city because it was bombed during the World War II. So it's not your typical French quaint town. You know, the buildings are very modern. They're even kind of like Soviet style, architecturally speaking. It has UNESCO World Heritage, which is a very interesting architectural spot, but it's definitely not what you expect. So I did some very superficial research, and then I kind of talked about this architecture in this town like it was, you know, the most beautiful place in France. And so, yeah, that definitely made a lot of my friends laugh at me. But I still think, you know, like, I don't know if I would take it off because, yeah.
I mean, you got it, but it's a cool reflection.
It was a very fun moment, but yeah, just sometimes you don't have to, you know, overhype every single aspect of the program. It's fine to be a little realistic sometimes, so.
And for the final question, any tips you will give to the people that are currently like applying and writing their essays?
Okay, I have a big tip for you, which is something I wish I'd known because it would have like taken so much stress out of the way for me. If you're really interested in the dual BA like I was, cool, amazing, apply for it. If you're still not 100% sure, or even if you are, you should also apply just to Sciences Po. especially if your profile fits more like the Sciences Po and you like more readily like will get accepted into that. You can always apply to Columbia when you're a Sciences Po student. And just like you can apply to Columbia, they also have a really interesting dual BA program with Berkeley and other universities. So really, like, this would have taken so much stress out of me, like knowing, you know, if you don't have the program right off the bat, that doesn't mean like you will not have it one day. And so many of the friends that I have here today, they got in through the 3A entry access, and that makes you no less of a dual BA person. So it's okay if you don't get in the first time, there's always a second chance. And it goes a lot with kind of the philosophy of, you know, a double opportunity that you get with this program.
Well, thank you so much, Valle. I believe this will be super helpful to anybody out there that's looking out for help and information.
Yeah.
Thank you, Valle.
Bye.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for agreeing to do. So before we start with Lisa, there's a lot of helicopters, backgrounds, and the noise, so sorry about that. The sound got messed up, but I got a new microphone, so yay! But Lisa went to an American high school. She has a very strong language background, which is amazing. And she had a clear connection between her and the program and vice versa. And her biggest tip is to have a clear resume. Now go watch Lisa. She has so much to say. Do this and help fellow incoming students with a dual BA. Tell me a little bit about you. What campus did you do? What year are you in right now?
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm a junior at Columbia right now, and I'm in the dual degree. So my first 2 years were at Sciences Po in France, and the campus I was on was Reims, if you will, in the Europe North America program. And over there I majored in economics and society, and I minored in what was called thinking like a lawyer, and is essentially pre-law. And now that I'm here, I'm studying political science with a subfield in IR, international relations, and comparative politics. And then on campus, I'm joining the ski team, which is really exciting. I'm in the Women's Network. I'm giving tours for, I found this out like a couple days ago, I'm giving tours for the GS, the dual BA. So if anyone happens to take a tour, I might be there.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
I will take a tour. Well, Lisa, let's talk about a little about your high school experience and your admission process. Okay. So Lisa, let's talk about your high school experience and your admission process to the dual BA. What high school were you from? Like, where did you grow up and where did you go to high school?
So I grew up in Westchester, New York, which is the suburbs of New York, and I went to an American public school. My elementary school was actually in French, at a private French school, and then I switched to public school.
Okay. And did you take, when it came to high school, because that's like the most important thing for admissions in college, what would you say, like what courses did you take, etc., when it came to your academic profile?
Okay, so academic profile, in terms of stats, my senior year I did 5 AP classes. I did AP Spanish, AP Comparative Government, AP Lang, like language arts, AP Environmental Science.
Oh my god, you took so many.
And then my junior year I took 2 or 3. And then my SAT, I had a 1470 super scored.
Oh wow.
My SAT subject test, I had an 800 in French. I know these are like very specific, but subject tests aren't a thing anymore. But I took Math 1, and then I took literature, but I don't remember what I got on those.
Oh no, but thank you so much for sharing those stats. And what about your GPA?
GPA was 95 point something, or like a 96, around there.
Like 3.95, 96? Like out of a 4?
Oh no,
GPA
ours was out of 100.
Oh wow,
So,
okay.
Wait, I don't remember exactly, but
No,
I think
no.
a 95 or a 96.
Lisa, let's talk about extracurriculars and all of that. So what do you think that you did that made you stand out to the admissions office team?
I think because I have such an international background, which is very common among people in the dual BA, that helped a lot. I speak 3 languages, French, Dutch, / Flemish because I'm from Belgium, and English, and Spanish pretty decently as well, actually. And then in high school, I did Dutch summer classes and French summer classes outside of school, so I was able to prove that I knew how to speak them that way. And then in school, I did mock trial. I was the president of, we had a Key Club, which is in some public schools. So that's like a volunteering association, so involved with the community, if you will. And then I don't think this helped that much, but in my free time I really like skiing and I ski competitively, so that was another fun fact.
Now let's talk about one of the most popular questions that I received, the admissions essay, and how to structure it. So, how did you approach the question? Because, by the way, this question is still the same as when we applied. So, how did you approach the dual BA essay question?
Okay, so I approached it very clearly, actually, because since admissions was half like the American process and half the French process, I knew that in Europe they don't really want a whole story. They just kind of want the facts of who you are, essentially, and why you're a good fit, like without making it into a story. So I can walk through the structure of my essay, which is
that would be great.
Clear cut. My first sentence was, I want to major in politics at Columbia and politics at Sciences Po. Like, I just said it right off the bat. Then I said why I wanted to major in them. It was because I wanted to be a diplomat. I don't anymore, but that's all right. And then I talked about being like an international student, growing up in an international environment, and then wanting to continue that and have an international lens on my college experience. And so my first paragraph spoke about courses I wanted to take at Sciences Po. So I would essentially say, I want to take this course at Sciences Po. I researched them very well because I really wanted to go to this program. So I want to take this course at Sciences Po by this professor, and I want to read this book by them. Why? Because I took this course in high school, or I did this, like, insert blank in high school that prepares me for this next step at Sciences Po. So I talked about mock trial.
Ooh, that's such a good formula, actually.
I talked about, there was an essay that I had read in AP Comparative Government that I really liked, and so I spoke about that. But essentially I went through everything, and then I did the same thing for Columbia. Again, specifying my major. I wanted to do this major because I'm interested in this, blah, blah, blah. And then my last body paragraph, if you will, was on languages. And because I did a lot of I followed French classes and Dutch classes outside of school, I spoke about that. I volunteered at them as well. So I talked about how knowing multiple languages kind of prepares me for going to France, and this passion of languages that I have, which I actually really do, so I wasn't making anything up. And then like a small conclusion paragraph summing everything up.
Oh my god, that's great. Thank you so much for telling us about your essay about the structure. I know you've helped other student dual BAs, and they're always super grateful with you for fixing and giving your tips, so thank you. And by the way, now that you see your essay 3 years after you got admitted to the program, is there anything you would change about it?
There actually is not. And I don't know why I wrote such a good essay. In my opinion, such like a clear and concise and nicely put together essay for this dual BA, because I certainly did not for the other, 18 schools I applied to.
I kind of applied to the same amount.
But for this one, I wrote it all very well, and I really wanted to go to the program, so I researched it a lot beforehand. And so I wouldn't change anything.
That's great. And Lisa, any tips you will give to people that are currently writing their essays?
make sure you leave enough time. I wrote all of my essays like 2 nights before they were due, and this one I left a week, and I would look it over it every once in a while, and it came out really well, and I was really proud of it. I left more than a week. This one I actually started working on like 3 weeks in advance. But all the other ones I was last minute, and I would do it the week they were due. And I would spend a lot less time on them. And then this isn't about the essay, but make sure your resume looks decent. Like your resume is everything I just spoke about in this essay, essentially put into a resume. So if you don't know where to start, maybe put that together. Once it's done, you don't have to look at it again. And it's like, you send it to every single school, so it's worth working on.
And question, do you remember anything about the interview with Sciences Po? And how was that like?
I do remember about the interview.
Really?
Yeah.
How was it?
Okay, so, well, the dual BA is different than other schools because any other interview you would have done didn't really matter as much as, like, for this program specifically. It matters because it was with an admissions counselor of Sciences Po and one of Columbia.
Wow.
And this was like the second stage. They rejected a whole bunch of people after the first stage of reading the essays, and then whoever was left, they had a bigger chance of getting into the program, so you had to do well in the interview, and that was like your last step. It was 15 minutes long, or 15 minutes long. It was right before COVID, actually like 2 weeks before, and since I live nearby, I came here, and there was one admissions counselor of Columbia, one of Sciences Po, and they asked me, tell me about yourself, so you gotta have like a 3-minute recap of who you are in life ready. And then they asked me what job I wanted to have after I graduated, and I said I wanted to be a diplomat. And then he asked me, how does that work? Like, what would you have to do? And I explained that a little bit. He's like, do you want to be a diplomat for the US or for Belgium? Because I have dual nationality. And he said, and he assumed I wanted to do it for the US, and I was like, no, I want to do it for Belgium because it's merit-based as opposed to like appointed. And then they asked me what I thought about an ongoing something like Brexit. What I thought about Brexit.
Oh my God.
They asked me, they're like, what is your take on Brexit at the moment? And I actually had a take on what was happening at the moment, so I got really lucky with that question. But I think that was about it.
Wow, you remember so much. I don't remember my interview.
I've been asked to remember it before. But for the interview, a tip I have is the week before you have your interview, read current events and know what's happening in the world, because they won't necessarily give you, if you apply to, for example, our program, which was Europe and North America, they won't necessarily give you a question specific to those regions of the world. You could get something about like anything, what's happening in Iran at the moment. So make sure you know exactly what's happening in the news for like the past month-ish, I would say, and then you'll be decently prepared to answer any current events questions that they'll throw at you.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for all of your tips, your insights, and I believe this will be super helpful for everybody. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.